Have you ever tried to get an AI to summarize a long document, and what you get back is just gibberish? Yeah, you are definitely not alone. It turns out there's this massive blind spot in how AI reads, but a brand new solution, and this is the cool part, inspired by our own brains, is about to change everything.
So what is going on here? I mean, why is this such a common headache? We've got these incredibly powerful AI models, right? But the second you give them a long, complex document, they just completely miss the point. It's so frustrating, and it really points to a major weakness in how they read.
And I am sure this looks familiar to a lot of you. You ask the AI a simple question about a document, and it either makes up a totally random answer, a hallucination, or just tells you it can't find the info, even though you know it's right there on page 27. This huge gap between the AI's supposed power and how it actually performs on long texts, well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into.
All right, so let's get into the weeds a bit. What is really going on under the hood? Before we can get to the really cool solution, we've got to understand the problem, and researchers have a name for it: the long context problem.
Okay, so here's the heart of it. A typical AI doesn't read a document like we do. Instead, it chops it up into a bunch of tiny little pieces, like digital confetti. And then, when you ask a question, it just rummages through these isolated pieces trying to find an answer. Think about it. It's like trying to understand a whole movie by only watching random 10-second clips. You'd have no idea about the plot, who the characters are, or what the main themes are. It is completely missing the big picture.
And this diagram really shows you that standard kind of clunky approach. The technical name is Retrieval-Augmented Generation, or RAG for short. So when you ask a question, the AI basically just does a frantic keyword search across all those little text chunks. It grabs a few that seem relevant and then tries to stitch together an answer. It's a direct but really messy process. And it fails a lot because it has absolutely no idea what the overall context is.
Okay, so if that's how AIs struggle, how come we can read a long book and have no problem at all? How do we do it so effortlessly? Well, the answer lies in this really cool concept that researchers are now trying to teach to an AI.
You know, when you read a book or even a long article, you're not just processing it word by word, right? Your brain is doing something incredible in the background. It's constantly building this mental model, this big picture summary of everything that's happening. And this mental map, this is what the researchers, pulling ideas from psychology and neuroscience, are calling a mindscape. And here's the really important part. A mindscape isn't just a simple summary. No, it's more like a framework. It's basically a mental GPS for the information. It lets you navigate the entire document in your head, see how all the different details connect, and it helps you know exactly where to look for a specific answer without having to reread the whole darn thing from the beginning.
So this mental map gives us what you could call 3 cognitive superpowers. First, it gives us an enriched understanding because we can put all the little details into the right context. Second, it allows for selective retrieval. That's our ability to just zero in on the exact piece of information we need. And finally, it enables integrative reasoning, which is just a fancy way of saying we can connect different ideas from all over the document to come up with a really solid, coherent answer.
Okay, now this is where it gets really, really exciting. The researchers looked at these human superpowers and they asked a brilliant, simple question. What if we could teach an AI to build its own mindscape before it even tries to answer a question?
And guess what? That's exactly what they did. They went out and developed this new technique called MiA-RAG. Now I know, it stands for Mindscape-Aware Retrieval Augmented Generation, which is a total mouthful, but the core idea is actually super simple and incredibly powerful. Just make the AI think a little more like a human.
And wow, this diagram just shows the difference perfectly. Just look at how much more elegant this new process is. Before the AI even thinks about looking for an answer, it first takes a step back and creates a summary of the entire document. It builds its own mindscape. Then, and only then, it uses that mindscape to guide its search for the information. It's not just fumbling around in the dark anymore, it's searching with a map.
So, let's break it down. It really just works in 3 simple steps. Step 1, it reads the whole document to create that all-important mindscape summary. Step 2, it actually uses that summary to add context to your question, making the question itself smarter. And then step 3, it uses that mindscape to guide it, both to find the right little chunks of text and then to piece them together into a final answer that is way more coherent and accurate.
Okay, this all sounds great on paper, right? But the real question is, does it actually work in the real world? Well, to find out, the researchers set up a pretty fascinating experiment.
What they did was they pitted their new, smarter AI against a much, much larger brute force model. I mean, this was a classic David versus Goliath showdown. You've got a relatively small 14 billion parameter model using this new Mindscape technique, going up against a massive 72 billion parameter model using that old, messy method.
And the results were a huge upset. In a finding that could really change how we think about AI development, the smaller, smarter model didn't just compete. It completely dominated.
All right, let's look at the actual data, because this is pretty amazing. This chart here shows the average rank of different models across a bunch of long document tests. And remember, a lower score is better. So check this out. The tiny 14 billion MiA-RAG model is right there at the top, with an average rank of 1.13. Now look all the way down at the bottom. That's the giant 72 billion standard model. Its rank? 3.13. It is not even close. The little guy that actually thinks before it acts is just way, way more accurate.
And if you want to put a single number on it, here it is. The 14 billion parameter model with this new Mindscape ability outperformed the much bigger 72 billion parameter model by over 8.6%. I mean, that is a massive leap in both performance and efficiency.
So, okay, why does this one experiment matter so much? What's the big deal? It's a big deal because it points to a fundamental shift, a whole new way we should be thinking about building and even judging AI.
And the researchers themselves put it perfectly in their paper. They said that this Mindscape-Aware alignment is way more important than just scaling up the model size or the input length. In other words, just making models bigger and bigger, that's not the answer. Teaching them smarter, more human-like ways of thinking, like building a mindscape, that's what really matters.
This really does a great job of summing up the whole shift in thinking. We're moving away from this old idea that bigger is always better, that an AI should just use brute force to crunch through all the data. The new way, the smarter way, is inspired by how our own brains work. It's all about understanding the big picture first, not just mindlessly processing all the tiny pieces.
So what does all this mean for you, for us? Well, it means that the next time you ask an AI to summarize that super dense report, it might, actually understand it. We're witnessing a move from AI that just processes data to AI that actually comprehends it. And that's not just a small step up, it's a fundamental shift. It's opening up a future where AI can be a true partner in our search for knowledge.